Okay. Hey, folks. Hey. Hold on. Let me set a few things up here. All right. Let me do my sound check. Can you guys hear me? I had to adjust the sound. I think I have it a little too high. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Dang, man. This chat is always so delayed, man. It's so delayed. Okay, good. Y'all can hear me. Wonderful. All right. How's everybody doing, y'all? Happy New Year. All that great stuff. I do apologize. Normally, I don't go live on Wednesday, so I know that I'm intruding on some other people who have shows that are usually at the same time. So I do appreciate those of you who are here. But yeah, so it's all good if y'all got to go back and forth to your other channels you'd like to support as well. Totally fine with me. I don't like the angle this camera is. I feel like I'm sitting too low. So give me a minute. Let me get this straight here. I should have had this done before I got on, but whatever. All right. How does that look? That's still not how I want it. In the meantime, can I tell y'all, today has been a day. It has been, I still don't like that. You know, it's fine. It is what it is. I just need the message to get out. How about that? Actually, let me grab one last thing and then we can start. Okay. Let's see if I can grab. Trying to sit here and get all ready. Okay, folks. I think that's a little better. Anyway, let me read a few comments. I'm not going to spend too much time tonight. We won't be here all night like we normally are, just because I want to kind of stick to the main topic. And then, you know, I want to let y'all get to your night and I want to get to mine once I get this camera right. Okay, I can do this. This works. Man, so much. All right, let me read a few comments before we start. I'm going to give people a few minutes to get in. I apologize. I know it's about 3 or 4 minutes late, but, you know, it is what it is. By the way, you may hear sirens all night. That's what I've been hearing all day. So yes, Happy New Year, guys. I'm glad you guys have made it into 2021. Clearly, it looks like we are already in for a show. Oh, look, y'all already heated up in the comments. That's what I'm talking about. All right. There's a lot going on. So what I'll do is I'm going to pretty much spend most of this video on, you already know, like pretty much the obvious topic. And then if we have time, if I have a little energy left, we can talk about a few other things. Also, I'm sure that because this is a very popular topic at the moment, you may see some trolls in the comment section. Don't take what they have to say to heart. Like, it is what it is. The moderators will take care of it if they can. If not, it is what it is. It doesn't change how I feel about anything. You know what I mean? And so I feel like that's one of the things that happen when people know that you know what you're talking about. The only thing they can do is name call because, again, they don't have the range for some of these conversations. And really, you know, sometimes there's no way to refute anything that's being said because they're not researched. They're not well studied. All they know how to do is name call. So they hop from channel to channel to channel. And apparently, I think they assume that that's something that gets under your skin. For me, we've been doing this YouTube thing for like a decade. So, you know, I ain't losing no sleep. I'm good over here. But where do I start? I will say I've been fine. So I do appreciate the people who were asking and double checking. A lot of you hit me up on Instagram just making sure I was alive. Like I said before, I don't go out into those areas when stuff like that goes down. Like when it comes to large collectives of white people that are angry, I mind my black business and stay on my side of town and take care of my business. That's where I'm at. Dang, it's hot in here too. Hold on, I got to turn my heat down. It's like boiling greens in here. God dang. All right, turn this down too. Okay, so where do we start? At this point, so what we do know so far, the election has come and gone, right? The election has come and gone. Biden has been elected. It is what it is where you stand politically. But at this point, Biden is going to be your president. It is what it is. You know what I mean? With the House and the Senate, you know, the Democrat Party has also flipped the Senate at this point, too. It is what it is. It's American politics. Some years you get the people that you want. Some years you don't. It's always been that. No ifs, ands, or buts. However, I do think in the past 12 years, there's definitely been something that has been boiling for years. And of course, it's rooted in anti-blackness, but it's also rooted in entitlement. And it's rooted in the fact that you have a large collective of people who feel that everything that happens here, everything that takes place, you know, is all because of the greatness of those who believe that, you know, those who believe that they have built everything here and everything that they have is deserved and everything that they have was worked for very, very hard. And, nobody has the work ethic of this collective of people. And that at the end of the day, if anybody has any problem with what it is that they've done, it's because they hate America. They're not patriotic enough. You know what I mean? They didn't build it, all that bull crap. And so now we fast forward and you're seeing what I like to call, again, just white reaction to not getting their way collectively. And so let me just go step by step here. First of all, I want to just know in the comment section, who is actually shocked by what they saw today? Because for me, I kind of felt like I already saw this coming at some point in time, maybe not in this specific form, but I've always felt that something like this would eventually happen based on what had been cooking and what had been boiling for years and years and years. Like this wasn't something where it was shocked. And I think there were two totally different viewpoints of watching this. Me, I can only speak for myself, and I don't always want to speak for the whole collective, but me as a Black person watching, I was just like, oh, okay, I can see something like this coming. And I felt like it was coming because based on what happened in November, what happened in December, as far as the other two rallies and protests they had, I was like, yeah, give it a minute now. And I think because we already in the back of our minds knew that, thank you, Lil I 3D, in the back of our minds, we already kind of knew that a lot of these people feel enabled by the very same system that they're fighting. That's the benefit of that white privilege element. You can just do whatever you want, and you're going to be protected by the system either way. So anything goes. And so me watching, I wasn't too shocked at the actual gall that people had to go and try to storm a federal building. That I wasn't shocked at. And to be honest, even the response in policing, I was half and half on. I thought for a minute, okay, this is something you don't normally see. So I'm sure that, unfortunately for the police, because, a lot of these people, they're all intertwined together anyway. These are all their buddies anyway. I was like, at some point, I guess I'm going to have to see some people stumping their friends out today. We're going to see how this plays out. And so, I'm sitting here watching the thing at home and just watching and waiting. And then I'm just watching the layers unfold. And I'm like, okay, this is getting interesting. Okay. Oh, they broke down barrier number 1. Oh, there's barrier number 2. Oh, all right. Barrier number 3. And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, this is like federal, the U.S. Capitol. This is, I just know I'm about to see some top-notch security that we ain't ever seen before. You know what I mean? I was thinking like, you guys ever see that movie Olympus Has Fallen? When it's like I think they were North Korean or something. They like attacked the White House and there's all kind of stuff that starts taking place. And, I thought it was going to be some stuff like that. I was looking, because listen, by the time they broke that 4th barrier and they had crossed and they were on the stairs of the Capitol, I just knew that at some point, okay, now they're about to kick it into the next gear. Like this is, listen, I still have my same viewpoints on police when it comes to police brutality. But hey, since we want to talk about equality and equity, I'm not going to lie. I wanted to see some people get stumped out, to be honest. I'm not even going to lie. I was ready. I was waiting. And so I'm sitting on my little couch back there just watching it unfold. And I just knew that when they broke into the doors of the U.S. Capitol and you got all of these congressmen in there, these are the people that are allegedly running the country and doing all the great stuff. I just knew. I was like, oh, it's going down now. Like, I just knew it was going to be like Secret Service people coming from the ceiling on ropes, coming down and all kind of stuff, lasers coming out of the wall. I was ready. I was like, oh, this is about to get good. Oh, this is going to be good. I'm texting my friends, you might need to turn it on. Like, they about to cut up. And nothing happened. I was just like, I was like, okay, maybe, okay. I'm like, maybe the tear gas is going to start coming out of the vents, like the heating system and stuff. I just knew because I saw the cameras go black from the chambers. I was like, oh, they about to stump some people out. They don't want the world to see these folks getting stumped out. So, okay, let me see how this going to go. This is getting good. Nothing. Literally nothing. And at the same time, I'm on social media and looking at the clips I've seen from there. And it was just so interesting to really see the double standards that exist. Because here you have a mob of people who are pissed off. They've already threatened to be violent. They've threatened to do whatever it is they're going to do and so on and so forth. This is revolution. It's civil war. We are going to show them. I'm like, all right. So I just knew that, the security forces were going to have we're going to show them response. And they showed me nothing. They gave me nothing. And it's crazy because, we just go back to the spring. Totally different ball game. You watch Black folks get stumped out for doing the electric slide by the police. You know what I mean? You saw black folks and everybody else. I mean, the tear gas, the mace, the pepper spray, the batons, the rubber bullets, the real bullets. And mind you, they had the good tear gas, the kind that they throw out, and it has the pyrotechnics just to add a little razzle dazzle. Everything. You know, you would have thought we was in World War III down the street over there on Constitution Ave and all them different streets and everything. And so I'm just sitting here like, okay, any minute now, I just know. But no, there was literally nothing. And I'm like, such a double standard, and it's interesting. And I kept seeing one of the justifications be, well, you know, DC has like 12 different law enforcement agencies. I forgot the actual number, but you know, U.S. Capitol Police, they have jurisdiction over all the federal entities. I'm like, I get that, but clearly y'all should have known that when you have a collective of angry white people who are literally taking the time to fly into the country or into the city to go and kick a few stuff down, you should have known that this was not going to be something peaceful, especially when they already feel enabled by the current president, who's pretty much egging them on. Yeah, let's go. You know, see you January 6th. This isn't the end. And again, this is something that's been building. You put out the narrative that the election is rigged. And mind you, that's not anything new the current president has been saying. He's been saying that even before he ran in 2016. Before he was even really on the ballot, he was saying the election was rigged, mainly because I think he thought he was going to lose to Hillary. He didn't realize he was going to win. But that was one of the things he was saying, and election is rigged, the biggest scam in history. And so already building that narrative, that language has been there. Now, mind you, I'm not about to sit here and act like this is the most trustworthy system we live in. You know it's some BS. But you watched him literally build that energy. And I think there's a lot of misplaced anger that white Americans have with just a lot of things. And so for them, this is finally something they can latch onto because now they finally feel oppressed. Not all of them. We already know it's not everybody, but the specific collective that's feeling some kind of way about the election and how they want to overthrow the government and everything else. You know, like there's a misplaced anger and now they finally have somewhere to put it. And so they said, we're going to put it into what's happening with this election. And then it turns and transforms into this space where, you know, the whole government, we must take it over. We got to be like the patriots of 1812 and go and burn the Capitol down, whatever they're going to do. And so they have created this world where they are oppressed. The whole world is out to get them. You know, the world just got a little too diverse for their liking. You know, too much diversity inclusion. You know what I mean? Too many black folks on TV getting too many spaces. And mind you, there's another conversation to have about that because I've noticed they put a lot of black faces in high spaces, but those people aren't really working for the collective. They're just kind of there to meet a quota so people to shut up. You know what I mean? That's another conversation. We'll do that another day. But, you know, so there's all of this misplaced anger and it's been built up and built up and built up. You have the current president feeding into it. You have a lot of the people in Congress also feeding into it. And really, I'm going to get back to them in a second because there's some other hidden agendas behind that nonsense as well. But now, you know, what do you expect to happen? Even the people that are running this thing, because, you know, the president was like, all right, y'all, peace. We got to be peaceful. All right, that's enough. Go home, be safe. Even some of his very followers who have been, you know, with him from day one are cussing him out like, what did you think was going to happen? That's what was supposed to happen. But again, the double standards in policing. Did you guys see the clips? That was the entertaining part for me. So one, I saw people taking selfies. And this is once they got in the Capitol. You know, because at this point, I just knew I was going to see people getting sprayed. And, you know, I just knew, you know, because they got snipers and stuff on the roof all day. You know, as somebody who's lived in D.C. for all of their adult life, I've just always known the federal buildings were not the places to go around and try to shake off nothing because you will be shot. That's how I was brought up. You know, I've been to the Capitol a handful of times, but I've never been to the stairs without some kind of pass. And so I just knew that because people had breached that level of security, I was going to see a show. I thought it was going to be like that scene out of Higher Learning when Michael Rappaport's character was on the ceiling just spraying everybody and Tyra got shot. I knew that was going to be some live TV. I was ready. But no, it wasn't any of that. And so it's just like you see the double standard. So there's people taking selfies with the police. And I think that goes back to that conversation we had anyway, as far as a lot of people in the white collective see the police and also see the United States as an extension of themselves and only them. Only them. They're the face of that. They're the voice of that. And so if anything goes against what would be the ingrained, I guess, perception of whiteness, the entity of whiteness, then there must be violence. And that's why you saw so many of them calling the police traitors and everything today, because this is one of the first times you saw some of them pretty much being told, yeah, we rock with y'all, but we can't let you do this one. And so you see the flip. And I mean, you got people, the picture that got me good is the guy that was in Nancy Pelosi's office with his foot on the desk, laid up, chilling. I was like, y'all are really brave. I'm like, I'm just thinking of all the felonies and stuff that are going to rack up. I'm like, y'all got y'all faces on camera doing this nonsense. Boy, I ain't going to lie. As a DC resident, I'm a little excited about jury duty. Like it might be kind of lit now. I told you the last time I had jury duty, it was dry. They gave me some boring case where it was like some rich people problems, some rich people fighting over money. I was bored, but I don't know. It might be interesting this time. But again, and what I want to get to, because I don't want to just tell y'all jokes all day, but the thing that I found interesting is once they put in the whole DC curfew, or even before that, what I found interesting was when they finally made the call to say we need to disperse these people, the fact that it literally took 10 minutes. And in 10 minutes, all of that mess was cleared. They had the people pushed all the way, not even just off the stairs of the building, but all the way to the grass, back to the street. It literally took 10 minutes. And so I was like, wow, the privilege that exists where you get a whole 2 hours to do whatever you want to do. Y'all are climbing on the side of the building. They done busted some windows. You got Congress folks all in there high and mighty freaking out, you know, security detail, the U.S. Capitol Police. I don't know what they were doing, because clearly what's the point of your existence at this point? Because geez, y'all, come on. And so watching the clips, there was one where they were pushing by the barricade, and I saw the police just move the barricade and let the people run in. I said, okay. Interesting. This is some good TV for me. I don't know how to respond to this. I'm just like the foolery that exists. And so for me, I'll say this. I think back to all of the movements that Black people have had collectively, where they have fought for something that's actually tangible. And not only that, but fought within the realms of what was appropriate in this system that we live under. Where even when you look at all those clips from like the civil rights era, civil rights movement, where people are getting sprayed by hoses, bit by dogs, beaten by batons, stepped on, arrested, slaughtered, killed. And that was just because they wanted to vote. They were trying to work within the system that was really not created for them, but they were trying to abide by the rules. You know what I mean? Trying to stay in that same lane and just be law-abiding citizens. They're marching and singing and scriptures, and they're trying to carry Bibles and everything because they really felt that, okay, well, if we bring in that religious aspect, white evangelicals will empathize with us. They'll understand, that we just want to vote. Now, mind you, half the candidates on the ballot were just as terrible, but, I guess we can at least try to pick somebody on here who's a little less racist. Which one do we want to go with? And so even then, you saw the levels of aggression. You saw the people that were murdered, the people who were burned out of their homes, so on and so forth. Even if we fast forward to the 80s and you talk about the move bombing, people who were even in their own property, in their own compound that they have for themselves, amongst themselves, minding their Black business. And what happened? You watched them drop a bomb on a whole city block and kill dozens of people, including children, all because, again, any kind of Black movement, any kind of Black anything is seen as a threat to the entire system. Even though most Black movements are just trying to correct the system to make it inclusive to everybody. And if it doesn't want to be inclusive, then fine, let's correct it and restructure it so everybody actually has an opportunity. Because at the end of the day, folks just want to live their lives and be left the hell alone. That's the reality. Folks just want to be left alone. But we live in a system that's intrusive. And unfortunately, Blackness is the first thing under attack. Now, some people are probably like, why are you trying to correlate this with Black and white? It is about Black and white because honestly, the rage that white America has about something like the election results is rooted in the fact that they hate the fact that Black folks voted. And it's so funny because y'all know where I stand with somebody like a Joe Biden. Like, I'm happy Crazy Man is out. But if you've been following me for the last 2 years, Joe was not, to me, he is not going to be the revolutionary anything that's going to change much. He is business as usual. He is the status quo. And now that we've gotten to the point where the status quo is not even good enough for white folks, that's when you need to start to worry like, damn, it's about to be a hot mess up in here. And so I just found it interesting because, again, like I said, you watch Black people get stumped out for trying to address the issues within a system and trying to abide by what's in the Constitution and using it as leverage as to why people should be treated in a way where they can live their life and have prosperity without systems and ordinances and all kinds of laws that work against them. But on the flip side, you just watch white folks go and try to tear a whole system down. And they were welcomed in with open arms, walked into the door. Did you see the clip of the old white lady who somehow ended up in there and then the police had to help her down the stairs? They're holding her hand. She's, oh, you all are so kind. Thank you so much for helping me down these stairs. And I'm like, the way they would have shot my grandma if that would have been her up in them stairs. But, it is what it is. And so, again, it's just like, it's funny. And then a lot of times on this channel, I'm always told I overreact or I have to be more inclusive to other people sometimes when they want to be allies, so on and so forth. I'm always told that, what else do people tell me? I'm told that, everything isn't black and white. White privilege doesn't exist, and you're being bamboozled. You need to go look at you need to do your research. And literally, the events of today have proven everything I've been saying for like the last 5 years on this channel, maybe the last 10, honestly. Just again, there is a double standard when it comes to how people maneuver in this city. And I think the other piece that pisses me off the most is I think people don't understand DC is an actual city that people live in. For a lot of these people who have flown in here from Iowa and Nebraska and Wyoming or wherever they came from, in their minds, DC is this place of just corrupt politicians that are trying to ruin the world. And so they go over there, tear everything down. And the part that's pissing me off is thinking of the fact that tomorrow and the day after, it's going to be black folks who work for Parks and Rec who have to go and clean all that shit up. Dang, didn't mean to cuss, but it is what it is. You know, they got to go and clean all that up. They have to go and disinfect all of those offices, all those buildings and everything like that. Even with some of the people who've been out there who work just security. I'm not talking police, but the people who their job is security. They work security for the cafeteria in the Rayburn building. They work security for the Madison building and everything like that. You know, regular everyday black folks where that's the one job they could get at that moment because that's what was available. All of them have been exposed to whatever's been happening because, of course, ain't nobody got no masks on. So those same people, again, are now exposed to whatever's happening in relation to something like COVID. And so even then, black people are still collateral to the decisions of white people. Let me tell you what was funny. I don't live too far from where everything was happening. But what was funny is there's a lot of hotels by me, and the hotels are where some of these people are staying. And so I'm just sitting here watching these people return back to their hotels, you know, and it's funny because my neighborhood is like half and half original DC, half gentrified. But at the end of the day, it's still original DC. And I'm watching all these folks who just had so much to say on the stairs of that Capitol. We're going to take it down. And yeah. As soon as they got on the right block, the way they were folding them flags up and walking in single file lines. And yeah, because you know which neighborhood you in, right? You didn't bring that crap over here, I see. Really, because a lot of them, they only have power in numbers. A lot of them, you take away the guns, ain't nothing going down. Did you see half the people who were out there? These broke down, out of shape, got gout, everything else. And these are the warriors. And for them, this is the moment in history. This is their Boston Tea Party. For them, they are convinced that they're going to be in the history books, and you know they're going to be looking and looked at as the heroes, and they're going to be, you know, the ones who fought to save America, because that's how delusional people have gotten. I'm just like, you know what? It's crazy. I was just totally shocked. I'm like, for this to be the top-notch security, I'm trying to figure out how it got that far, because again, had those been black protesters, you know, kicking the door down because they were tired of what was happening with the policing, it would have been a massacre outside. They would have still been trying to sweep up the blood, mop it up, spray it up, put the bleach on the sidewalk, everything. And so to watch people literally go in this building, I mean, and then they're not even afraid of like the charges. They got the faces all on camera. Hey, mom. I'm like, yo, the felonies that are coming out with that one. Interesting. It's just like, wow, when you compare the now to the spring of 2020, you see such a difference. And even with this whole curfew, from what I last saw, it's still pretty peaceful outside. I remember April, May, and June, as soon as that DC curfew came in, it was like the police did a switch and the tear gas started, tear gas coming out, police with the batons just beating everybody down, so on and so forth. People were running and getting pushed into the area like Eastern Market and everything. And, you know, some people in the area were nice enough to open their doors and let protesters in and take shelter until the curfew was over. And the police literally sat outside of some people's homes for 6 and 7 hours until the curfew was lifted. And then that's when the people would kind of go out and say, all right, I'm gonna go home. But it's interesting. And it goes back to why I said things like symbolism, black people collectively, that's why we can't always buy into that. Because there's a lot of people who felt that the issues in this country were solved after a few police took a knee. They thought the issues were solved just because Joe Biden got in. They think the issues are solved just because they flipped the Senate. No, it's the same foolery. It is the same nonsense. Ain't that much changing, because something like white anger doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. I'm sorry. Collectively, white anger stays around until they get their way. And the thing that I find so funny, if the tables are flipped, when I say how I feel about this country, you know what I'm told. You don't like it, you can leave. You can go back to Africa. You know, you can pick which country you want to go to. You want to go to Zimbabwe? Go for it. You know, they do all kind of racist things and so on and so forth. And now, you know, the tables are flipped. And I'm like, so when y'all getting on the boats and going to Nova Scotia? Like, what's up? Where y'all going? Y'all not going to Ireland? Because St. Patrick's Day, everybody's Irish. So get on the boat. Sorry, people in Ireland. I know, but it is what it is. Like, you know, so it's interesting. There's that conversation of ownership and believing that they own everything. And when you've been taught that your entire existence is because you are the greatest to ever have walked this earth, then automatically anything that challenges that is considered a threat. And by any means necessary, they don't mind tearing it down. They do not. So they will burn this country down just to be right. You saw them do that the last 4 years. And so it's just like absolutely crazy. And that's why I said with the symbolism, when people started doing the electric slide and the cha-cha slide, and just because a police officer took a knee, or, there was, some corporate companies decided, oh, we're going to donate to Black Lives Matter and all this other crap. And people just, excuse me, I'm sorry, or the black squares on Instagram, all of these symbolic gestures that aren't anything tangible. And I'm just like, you know what? It's going to get real interesting in the next few months, because again, nothing has changed. The viewpoints that a lot of people have did not start with Obama, did not even start with Trump. They've been here for the longest. Trump was just somebody that was able to open the floodgate, and people finally felt comfortable enough to really be out in the open with it without having to worry about any kind of kickback. They already felt that way with Obama. But again, when you have somebody who's in charge and saying, I'll see you on January 6th, whatever happens, I'll pay your lawyer fees, people are empowered to that. And again, it is what it is. And again, this is not about Trump, and this is not about Trump supporters. It's more so about just seeing a double standard that exists within a system that is not for a certain collective, but built for another. And what that another group can do, all within the realms of fighting for that system. They're just the double standard of how much they can just do whatever they want to do. So when I kept hearing the news anchors say, oh, this is a sad day for America, this is embarrassing, I'm like, it ain't embarrassing for me. I ain't sad. I mean, this is proving everything I've been saying. So, let me sit back and watch and see how this unfolds. Very interesting. Like, and I saw that there was a woman that died in all of this. Just who wants to die for Trump? I'm sorry, for any politician. There is nobody in office right now I'm willing to take a bullet for. It's just not happening. Absolutely not. And so imagine dying for like a 74-year-old pill popping man that's probably going to kick the bucket in 5 years anyway. Who, of all the things to have kicked the bucket for, that's between you and whatever you believe spiritually, but that is some foolery in itself. I absolutely can't do it. What else did I write down? It's just crazy. And then again, you're just seeing, because what I found interesting too, even when we talk about what happened in Nashville, the way that story was brushed over, as soon as they found out, okay, it's not who we thought it was. It's not anybody Muslim. It's not anybody who's a black identity extremist. Okay, it's one of us. All of a sudden, that story disappeared. And if you paid attention to what happened in Nashville, I mean, literally the entire communication system of that area, especially people who had AT&T, it was a wrap. People couldn't even use their phones for 2 or 3 days. And the fact that you literally had a domestic terrorist attack and it's just been brushed over like it didn't happen. Like we just moved right on to the next. Right on to the next. You're seeing, again, the double standards that exist. And so, again, with the mayor having this whole curfew and everything, they still outside. I'm just saying, the spring of 2020, when that curfew kicked in, yeah, there was some people getting stumped out, but by 1 a.m., folks was in the house. They cleared them streets. They had enough tear gas for everybody. And you watched in city after city, when it came to anti-police violence, protests or anything related to black people as a collective, the police had all the gadgets in the world. They had armored trucks and all kind of special tasers and bodysuits and batons and what else did they have? The flamethrowers. I swear they were setting stuff on fire, everything. And now finally you have people literally storming the Capitol and all you had was a little 3-foot barricade, the same ones they use at the Chris Brown concerts. Like, really? I can't. And it's like, y'all should have saw that coming. Absolutely crazy. And so again, Black folks get bitten by dogs for somehow believing in the system. Black folks get beat down, stepped on, arrested, pretty much your entire livelihood, depending on what kind of charges you get, all because you fought just to have the right to exist peacefully, to be left alone. That's really what Black folks just want. Just leave us the hell alone, man. Dang. You give people their stimulus check too. That's all. But like, again, you flip the script. You watch people that can just go and do whatever they want to do. And there's nothing. These are patriots. The Patriots. I'm just like the nerve. It's just absolutely crazy. What else did I write down? Lord. They got walked in the door for real. And then again, thinking back, remember they had the moment where they were tearing down all of the Confederate statues, which for me, I already told you where I stand on that. The Confederate statues for me, I just always felt if you're going to have them up there, just put the real history under their emblem. Okay, this person wasn't ish because this is what they believed in, and let this serve as a lesson as to what this country should never do again. That's how I looked at it. So I was impressed about the statues coming down. But if you wanted to take it, if you wanted to keep them up, I always felt put some real information under them. They should not be celebrated. They should be seen as a warning and kind of like a reflection of where America has been and where it still is, and why people should continue to work to change that. But going back to that, you saw when they were tearing down the statues, current president was like, oh, mandatory 10 years. We're going to make sure it's 10 years for doing all that. And so now you watch the tables flip, and I'm like, okay, the same thing that people were going to be getting 10 years for is now celebrated. And just because, again, different group of people, absolutely foolish. And what got me going is when they put on the random strobe light. I don't know if y'all saw that. They turned on like this strobe light. I was like, what was that supposed to do? I'm like, is that supposed to be for like the older protesters so they stroke out or what? No disrespect to the older folks. I'm just saying, sometimes when flashing lights be messing with people. So I was like, what exactly was that supposed to do? It's just the amount of patience that exists. Again, the patience, the level of chances, and how much we're going to try to really work together, reach across the aisle when it comes to white folks collectively. And it's interesting. Where does Blue Lives Matter stand in all of this? Are y'all like cutting off y'all tattoos now? Because now they hate the police. And so I'm like, right, Blue Lives Matter, huh? All right, I see that went out the window. As soon as y'all got challenged, now they're all traitors. And so I wonder how that's going to work. Because, people had like Blue Lives Matter tattoos. So I'm sure folks going to be slitting their throats and stuff now trying to get rid of tattoos. But, it's just, it is what it is. And getting to some of these people in Congress, this is how I honestly feel. Most of the people in Congress who bought into this whole thing about the election being rigged, they already knew it was BS. But they recognized that they had leverage when it comes to the vulnerabilities of angry white people. And they recognized that they were trying to build a longer political career. They wanted to kind of ride on the coattails of something like the Tea Party and guarantee that, hey, because people are already pissed off about where things are, when 2022, 2024 comes, they can be the ones to say, oh, no, we challenged the system. We were for the people. And now you're even seeing some of these people change their minds in a matter of 2 hours. Oh, okay. I'm not protesting it anymore. All right, we got to come together now. This is too much. I'm like, nah, stick with what you said. Y'all want to play these games. You done riled up these people. They honestly believe in this mess, and you built into that. You don't get to backtrack now. This is the storm that you created. So go on and get your umbrella, get comfortable, because this is associated with your name from now on. It is what it is. And so all of the ones who all of a sudden try to switch it up, nah, stay up, object. Come on, object. Keep it going. Don't back out now. This is the ship and the hill that you wanted to die on. So now it's time to kick the bucket on that hill. Don't backtrack now. So a lot of them are full of crap, and they played into that. And that's why sometimes with the people who bought into it, I'm like, y'all are getting played. The whole system plays everybody, to be honest, but they really got played because honestly, a lot of these people truly, truly, truly believe that there was a whole system to suppress their vote. I'm like, since when does a system in America work against white folks collectively? It may work against the working class, but the element of whiteness will always be top tier in this country. It will always be what is supported and backed just based on how the country operates. And so the fact that white people feel that they are oppressed in this country when they've been in power pretty much forever. I don't even care about Obama being in, and even the 2 years that Democrats had the House, the Senate, and the Supreme Court. White people were still empowered got everything they wanted. Even if you want to talk about something like Obamacare, the Obamacare that was rolled out and voted on is not even the initial Obamacare that was created. By the time he caved and bent backwards and changed so much stuff, we ended up getting like a carbon copy diet version of what was supposed to be. And they were still mad. I was like, interesting. Absolutely interesting. And so again, this is a power grab. And people who keep talking about the 25th Amendment, please, if y'all haven't used it by now, you're not using it. You might as well go ahead and cut that out the Constitution, because clearly I don't think you're ever going to get another president as extreme as the current president. The viewpoints will still be there, but somebody like the current president is already just irrational. He ain't really playing with a full deck. As far as the levels of racism, I think there's actually been other presidents who have been more racist and a little bit more just unapologetic about how terrible they were, Ronald Reagan. But, I do think you're going to still get candidates that have a lot of those same viewpoints, but they will be a little bit more rational. But again, I don't see another cuckoo Trump type person. Again, I see the policy being there. It's going to be somebody who comes in there all polished, but behind closed doors. They're going to be one of the worst candidates you've ever seen in the world. And so, again, if you haven't used it on Cuckoo Man at this point, what's the point? You can just throw that out. And so it's foolery, just absolute foolery. And I just, any kind of movement that Black people have had collectively in this country, the way they shut it down so quickly, unapologetically, you know what I mean? And to watch what I saw today, I said, boy, the privilege. I know white people would be sleeping good at night. Like, goodness, if I ever in my mind thought that I could go and kick down the door at the U.S. Capitol, y'all hear them sirens? But absolutely, it's just like, I don't know. And I think really the lesson in all of this, because at least for me as a Black person, where I stand in all this is like, as a Black person, I have lived to just, or I've learned to live with my guard up. And what I mean by that is I understand that this system is not for me and that I'm never going to be protected by it. I can learn to maneuver in it. I can learn to succeed within the system, but it's always going to be built in anti-Blackness. It's just the way it is. And for me, I've just learned I have to just live with my guard up. Like I was telling some of my friends on the phone earlier, it's kind of like, you know, like when you get in an apartment or even if you were in a car and, you know, you do the inventory sheet before, you know, that, you know, any kind of damage you see. It's like sometimes you write down stuff that you already think might get messed up. Okay, I know there's going to be some scratches on the walls. So let me write that down. All right, you know, the carpet might be a little messed up by the front door, this, that, and the third. Or if it's a car, okay, there's a ding on the left side, a ding on the right side. You write everything down. You're ahead of the game already because you already know what kind of foolery you're going to be dealing with. And I think collectively for Black folks, that's kind of the way we have to operate in the system. So even with something like the election, in the back of a lot of our minds, the election is more so like, okay, this is not going to be the great hope for Black people collectively. Joe and crew, they're not going to be the great revolutionary team that come and save us and all will be well and so on and so forth. It's kind of like, no, this is just kind of like some temporary stability to give us a little time to focus and build whatever we have while the world goes crazy, because come 2024, depending on who's in office or depending on who wins, it's going to be the same foolery. And so again, for me, I've just learned I don't have any expectations for this country as a whole, which is why I was not shocked by anything. I'm not appalled. I'm not embarrassed or disappointed. I could care less what other world leaders think about the United States because I don't even think that great of the United States. It is what it is. I just live here. You know what I mean? And so again, it's just like when you just look at the history, collectively, white folks, it is what it is. Y'all getting fried up tonight. It is what it is. But, you know, violence has always been their response to everything collectively. We know it ain't everybody, but collectively, when we're talking about the idea of whiteness, when we're talking about the idea of protecting a system, it's by any means necessary. And for a lot of people today, they felt that that system was under attack because Joe Biden, of all people, is in office, because apparently Joe Biden is the Black radical savior and he's going to, you know, just do so much that's going to be so hard on the white collective. I was like, okay, you say so. But, you know, again, any means necessary to protect that system that exists. And they recognize that they're protected by what you would call the agents of that system, which is the police force, which is sometimes the military. And so that's what we saw. I didn't see no paddy wagons out there today. I didn't see people getting dragged into, you know, the paddy wagons and stuff. I haven't seen it yet. I don't know. Maybe I need to change my channel to the local news. It might be happening right now. But again, this was the most tranquil response to what you would call a breach of national security. Very tranquil, you know, very calm and collected. The fact that, again, like I said, people were taking selfies. If you saw the videos, people are walking in. It was funny when you saw like the two velvet ropes. And the people were walking in like a single file line into the building. Oh, this is the rotunda. Okay, yeah, we're going to show them. And I'm just like, what road are y'all living in? I was like, I just knew. I just knew. Like I said, I thought they had all kind of special treats that I haven't even seen before when it comes to security. I just knew like folks was going to be coming out of the ground like a conjure and everything and just ready to lay hands. But no, nothing. So let me check some comments because I've been ranting. I don't have that much to say today. It's just interesting. And again, like I said, I've been telling people because a lot of folks assume that I was out there counter protesting. I don't do that counter protesting stuff. No, when white folks are angry and they out there together, I mind my business because, again, collectively, white folks are dangerous. It's just in our history. It's always been. And I think one of the flaws that exist in this country, again, people really just don't understand the history of this country. They don't understand the policy. They don't understand how laws and ordinances and articles and everything else were created to oppress. They really don't, because again, people have been given this very Sesame Street, watered down, this was the greatest country in the world rhetoric. Even again, you talk the Native Americans. Think about if you've lived in America and gone to K through 12 here, even the conversations about how America was discovered in Columbus and all that, when they get to the conversation about like Native Americans, the way that it was presented to me as a kid, I thought they got here, There was nothing but trees, and there were a few thousand Native Americans spread throughout, and nobody lived anywhere east of Virginia. Like the West, when you start going to Tennessee, Wyoming, California, all that, nobody lived there. It was just wilderness waiting to be discovered. And yeah, a few folks died, and smallpox killed a few folks, and some of them were bad Native Americans, and so they had to kill them. That's what you're taught. But then in reality, when you realize that there were tens of millions of people who had been living here for decades, for centuries, established, had their own everything. I saw a really interesting meme where it was talking about the oldest buildings and monuments within the United States. And when you saw some of the areas like in Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, and some of those buildings had been there, or some of those, I guess, whatever it was that was built had been there since the 8th century. It's just like, wow, you even had a Sesame Street version of history. And so you weren't really taught that, okay, in order to conquer and dominate an entire country, they killed tens of millions of people. Not just throwing the smallpox blankets on them, but we're going to go and kill all the buffalo. We're going to kill the food supply. You know what I mean? We got gunpowder. We're going to shoot and kill everybody. You know what I mean? We're going to take away people's religion. We're going to make it illegal for people to practice whatever they practice. Oh, and then we're going to double it up once the slaves get here. It's going to be a 2-for-1 special. So everybody about to catch it. And so people really just have not learned and not well-versed in history. And so people run around here with this perception that we are just this great country. And as somebody who has lived in both the United States and overseas, I think I learned very quickly that no, we're kind of one of those, well, not we, but the country that I live in is one of those countries that's pretty much hated by the whole world, because we just jump into everything. Not we, the country, but I live here, so I'll say we. Like I said, if you've been following me for years, if you follow the podcast, I told you guys about the time I used to live in Italy for 3 years. And that very last year that I was there, that's when we went to war with Yugoslavia. That's when Slobodan Milosevic had invaded Kosovo, and NATO and all that jumped in. And the Italians were not having it with Americans. They hated our guts over there. Now, they're wanting to talk, acting like they just weren't trying to snatch up Ethiopia 40 years earlier, but whatever. But anyway, I talked about having to have like my school bus bomb sniffed every single day. You know what I mean? Police escort to school every single day for like 3 months, because the Italians wanted us out of there, mainly because the Adriatic Sea was the only thing that separated a place like Italy and Yugoslavia. And so, of course, you start having people who now have no home because their home is being bombed. They're coming over into northern Italy. The Italians were pissed. And so as a child, that was the first time I recognized, like, I don't think things are really the way they told me. Because up at that point, I was like, why do they hate us? We are the greatest. We saved the world in World War II. We just dropped a few nuclear bombs, but we had to do what we had to do. And so it's just like, I think there's this like that conversation we have about American exceptionalism that has got America into a lot of ish, because I think when you constantly put yourself in a place where you don't challenge the status quo, where you don't want to grow, where you don't want to build and grow from a place of genuine authenticity, and it's built on a lie, and you have to maintain that lie, and you have to maintain whatever elements of foolishness that exist. That's how you become an imperial nation that has military bases all over the world, that has $740 billion for the military, but has no money to give people their stimulus checks. You know what I mean? And so I can't. It's the foolery, the symbolism. Anyway, I said I was going to read the comments, and I ranted for another 20 minutes. So let's see where we're at. I'm over this crap. Jeez, I have so much. I wish I wanted to actually do an actual video and upload it, but I was like, let me just go live, because I ain't trying to be up till 2 a.m. because y'all know I like to have my visuals and my pictures and stuff to back it. But, it is what it is. But I don't think this is the end of anything either. This is just the Pandora's box being kicked open. And so you're going to see more of this throughout time periods. You're going to see more of this throughout the years. And it is what it is. Whiteness, in my opinion, has been challenged at this point. I think a lot of people have waken up, and with the emergence of something like social media, where people can really say how they honestly feel without having to, be shut down or monitored, I think people are having their awakenings. And I think as each generation comes up, it's just going to be more and more intense. It is what it is. Let's see. Somebody said South Africa has white people there trying to take it over. Again, when you talk about the Berlin Conference of 1884, it's okay, the scramble for Africa. And now there's even like a new scramble for Africa, where it's, again, this time, it's the United States, it's Europe, it's China. They're going and getting all kind of pieces. I know a lot of people across the water on the continent have been very vocal about the fact that, a lot of their governments at this point have been compromised, because a lot of their governments have gone into, billion-dollar infrastructure deals with China, and in return, China gets to mine resources. They get to do whatever they want when it comes to gold, so on and so forth. And a lot of the people in those government positions have been compromised because money talks when you're in a nation that does not have an how do I want to say it, an established infrastructure that's backed and supported globally. You know, it's easy to corrupt a lot of people in power. And so sadly, a lot of the people have suffered. And so it's a lot. Yes, again, Lily said, who wants to die for Trump? LOL. That's my point. Y'all dying for politicians? Really? They wouldn't do that mess for you. Like, I'm not taking a bullet for any politician. I'm sorry. It is what it is. Because at the end of the day, these people all have terms. After their time is up, their time is up. You think I'm about to go out there and get bashed in the head over? Yeah, right. Man, somebody said, Wimby said law enforcement was suppressed on purpose, all a big setup. Exactly. And then they had the nerve to say, well, we were outnumbered. We were caught off guard. How? You saw what they did in November. You saw what they did in December. You knew what was coming. For a lot of people who are invested in the fact that they believe that this election was stolen, for some of them, this was the last hurrah. January 6th was the final cutoff, because since November, you kept seeing every single time they would lose in court, you know, 1 for 59 with the court cases. They kept saying, oh, you haven't seen the end. You haven't seen the end. When Wisconsin judges were like, nothing's wrong over here. You haven't seen the end of it. Pennsylvania said, no, ain't nothing wrong. You haven't seen the end. You haven't seen the end. And they did it over and over and over. When the state started, you know, sealing and locking in the electorates, you haven't seen the last. And so you kept stringing these people along who feel that their system is working against them, even though, again, they're still benefiting from privilege, but that system is working against them. You have strung them along, and you have given all their hopes to January 6th. What did you think was going to happen? You thought they was going to be out there singing freaking John Lennon? Imagine, like, come on. And yes, J&D says a cult. It really has become like a cult, because it's not even about country. It's allegiance to one individual. That's what I find funny. And so I think you're also seeing all of the parties kind of split. You're seeing the Democrats kind of break apart. It's like the progressive wing, the moderate wing, and the ones who are scared to shake the table. The Republicans, same thing. You got the old guard Republicans who just, you know, they like their subtle racism and leave it that way. And then you got the new folks that are it's a whole lot of foolery going in. Like I said, for those of you who really believe in pushing third party, like I've been saying, this is the time to do your groundwork for like 2028, 2032. Do your groundwork now, because again, you're watching the system kind of screw everybody over. It is what it is. Wait, damn, I think it just scrolled up. What? Oh, Jamzonita, the Baroness said the law and the lawlessness working hand in hand, period. Exactly. And so again, I think one of the reasons you didn't see police really stumping people out, because again, these are some of these folks' friends. This is their people. You know what I mean? Like, hey, Greg, what are you doing out here? Oh, really? Oh, you're protesting? All right, man. Well, you guys go ahead. I'm not going to hit you too hard. Because I saw one clip. This is when they were still moving and pushing the barricades. And so I'm looking at U.S. Capitol Police with the batons and everything. So I just knew, like, when they were pushing the barricade, in my head, I had a flashback. There's a clip from the civil rights movement where there was a march, and you see the police. They literally just whacked this man in the head with the baton. Boom, right? They hit him twice, and he punched the police back. It was a black dude, right? And so I just knew that's what I was about to see only with white people. I watched the police officers say, knock it off. And they did a tap, tap. I'm like, again, I have my viewpoints on police brutality. I ain't trying to see people get stumped out. But again, I'm all for equity and equality. So give them what y'all gave us. That's all I'm saying. Spread it around evenly. Some foolery. Oh, this is good, Torre. He said, my only beef is the language the media is presenting. Like, we're not dumb. This is a coup, domestic terrorism from white supremacists. Call it what it is. And that's exactly what it is. Because you kept seeing, I don't know if you paid attention, on every news outlet. Because again, we know that it doesn't matter which news outlet, whether it's MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, they're all owned by the same people anyway. You know, you kept saying peaceful. They were mostly peaceful. I'm like, all of that goes out the window once they kick the door in and we're in the Capitol. Anybody who's even in that crowd at that point, all of y'all are accessories. So do them like you do black folks who are normally outside singing and chanting and for some reason reenacting stump the yard routines the same way you was beating all them up. Go for it. Ain't no peaceful nothing. That's some bull crap. And the fact that somebody died, you know what I mean? There ain't no peace with that. Crazy. J&D said, are they going to Olive Garden now? Well, you know what? There ain't no Olive Garden in DC. You got to go all the way to Hyattsville for that. I don't know if they're open or not. Jeez, absolutely crazy. They all work together. They all tied in together. Craziness. And so another thing that's interesting, now you recognize, my question is, where has the money gone when it comes to like national security and everything for the billions that y'all spent? I watched some regular everyday Joes go and bust up windows at the place that apparently holds the government and holds the operations of, you know, one of the most powerful governments in the world. And all it took was a few punches and the windows was broken. I'm like, I thought these windows were bulletproof and retrofitted and everything else and reinforced. Clearly that's been exposed. So you need to go ahead and replace every single window. Because if I was somebody who really hated the country and wanted to go do some damage, I already know that the windows on the top left side by that pillar, I can kick in and climb in through the window. Like, really? Craziness. Oh, Sock T said, or Kelly, I don't know if this is to me or somebody else, would you recommend moving to Cali? I don't know if that question's for me. At this point, as an American, there's nowhere in this country as a black person you can go and not escape anti-blackness. You know, as somebody who's grown up on the West Coast and has family in Cali, California is a unique place. I think there's a lot of movements there, but at the same time, it's still America. And, you know, you can't escape the foolery that's happening. Because when you think of all the things that have happened in a place like Oakland, in addition to just being gentrified, but when you talk about the policing and the history and what has taken place there over the years, and not just Oakland, when you talk about even San Francisco, when you talk the Bay Area, when you talk LA, just it doesn't really matter where you go. A lot of people in the comments are saying that all of this is staged. I mean, it could be what it is, but even if it's staged, clearly there's a message that they're trying to send. And really the message that I would get out of it is, hey, depending on how you look, you can do what you want around here. And it is what it is. Let's see. To the people donating, I haven't got a chance to thank all of you. So those who have donated, I do appreciate it. But again, like there's also this perception that if you move to the West Coast, you escape racism. Like me growing up in Washington State, we were kind of presented that racism only existed in the South back in the 50s and the 60s. And, you know, Martin Luther King died and America came to their senses. And then all of a sudden we were all loving. And then, of course, by the time Barack Obama got in there, we were all post-racial. Like, remember, you know, we haven't heard the term post-racial in a while, but for all of 2008 to about 2015-ish, you kept hearing post-racial, post-racial. Post-racial, we are all together. And I used to get fried up on this channel. Folks used to get mad at me when I started shaking the table. And I was just trying to tell people like, nah, we're not. And so I think on the West Coast, there's this idea that it's just free and black people are out there skateboarding and we're just on the beach surfing. No, police stumping them out over there too. All right. I told you guys before, like, I think I talked about it in the video coming out of Chicago when the police did that false raid. I told you about how like the LAPD kicked my grandparents' door in. Look, they went to the wrong house to do a raid, kicked my grandparents' door in, you know, and they came into a living room with plastic on the furniture and old folks watching Judge Judy or In the Heat of the Night, whatever they were watching. But you know what I mean? Again, anti-blackness is global. And within the United States, it's been institutionalized within our system, within education, within our banking, within housing, within food, within resources, within jobs, within everything, absolutely everything. And so, again, I told you guys the book that I'll go grab it really quick. I haven't had a chance to express it. Let me grab it real quick. But again, since we're talking California, I told you guys the book, Not in My Neighborhood. Make sure it might be backwards on your screen. I can't tell. But again, Not in My Neighborhood, Antero Patella. Again, this is talking about LA and the building up of LA pretty much after Reconstruction and how when you talk redlining, when you talk gerrymandering, when you talk resources to schools and a little bit of everything, again, just because LA has beautiful palm trees and Hollywood and boulevards and Melrose and everything else, oh no, they got their problems too. So don't be fooled and think that, you know, the issues that exist are only, you know, regular, you know, folks from the backwoods of Louisiana causing all these problems. A lot of these people that you see out there are people that are executives and school teachers and doctors that live in very liberal cities like Seattle or Portland or Denver or New York. Like it doesn't matter. I think there's also this idea that the people who have the most to complain about in this country when it comes to not liking, I guess, anything that's too left leaning, there's a perception that it's only like a certain kind of working class white American. Don't be fooled. Whiteness goes beyond class level. All right. Because again, even the working poor that are white in America, you know, they see themselves in alignment with the elite that are white because, again, they feel that that is owed to them and that is deserved. And that's where that narrative of working hard comes from, where eventually we'll get what it is that they have. And people forget that there's a conversation about the fact that a lot of white wealth in this country came from three different elements. Element one, of course, was slavery. Two is, of course, you're talking any element of oppression globally that may have taken place. That usually deals with old money. And three, when you talk about the handouts that the U.S. government gave to many white Americans through a bunch of different programs, especially after the Great Depression, when you're talking about the New Deal, when you're talking about the Marshall Plan and some of the stuff that happened in regards to that, when you're talking about the GI Bill and how Black Americans were left out of the GI Bill almost until well into the 80s, when you talk about the federal housing programs and you're talking FHA loans, all of that stuff is systemic. You know what I mean? If you watch my Steve Harvey, "No, that's not how this works" video, you know, it addresses the entire buildup of how the current white American middle class was built. Well, it doesn't really exist now because, you know, of course, the government was so jacked up. Now at this point, it's very rich, very poor. It's kind of hard to find it. But that middle class that would have existed in the 50s, and some of it made it into the 60s, how that was constructed, how all of that was planned and supported by laws and policy and everything else like that. You know, it talks about that. But again, people haven't really been taught that aspect. And there's a perception that everybody just, you know, the people who have what they have work very hard. And again, I guess a book I could recommend, The Color of Wealth, The Color of Law, like both of those are really good books in regards to talking policy that, one, enhanced the livelihood and the lifestyles for a lot of white Americans, but also was regressive and punitive for Black Americans and even people who just did not fit into the white bubble. You know what I mean? Where are we at here? Somebody said we survive. We survive, don't live. I might have read that wrong. I'm not sure. Somebody said, let's see. Somebody said, no, there's racism on the West Coast. Oh, I know. I'm from the West Coast. Listen, I told you my bad running with the police, where I was met with a taser gun, was on the West Coast in very liberal Washington state. All right. I've told that story a million times, so I ain't telling it tonight. But just know, little old 17-year-old, 18-year-old me, you know, going to Taco Bell in house shoes and basketball shorts is met with a taser gun because the police are looking for somebody else. And I fit the description in a town that has a Black population of 2%. You know, it is what it is. Somebody said social media has banned Trump for 12 hours. Ooh, they should have been to that. You know what I mean? Trump has been a very dangerous person on social media. Now, and it doesn't even just deal with race, but just when you're talking stability, the threat of war and everything else, he has just been a clown this whole time. So social media, y'all are late. Twitter, y'all tried it. Y'all should have been got rid of him. Because the way that other people get shut down and yanked off the internet for being honest and telling the truth about things, you know, I can't. And William said racism is worldwide. Yes, it is. It absolutely is. Has anyone been to Puerto Rico? I have not. But I do want to say one thing, even when you're talking the conversations of Puerto Rico, and this is to white liberals as well. I keep seeing the conversations of people want Puerto Rico to be a state so that it can kind of give the Senate an opportunity to really stay in power when it comes to Democrat anything. Let us remember that Puerto Rico did not want to be a United States territory. We just took it. You know what I mean? Same thing with Hawaii back in 1896. We just snatched it up and said it's going to be ours. And so the people of Puerto Rico are very split on what it is they want. I think more of them would rather not be a state than to be a part of this union. And I think really what they want is they just want to be in a place where they don't have to owe so much debt to the United States, and they would rather be at their own sovereign nation. In my opinion, I think that's really what a lot of the people of Puerto Rico would want, because by them being a U.S. territory, they have not gotten the same support a lot of states have gotten. The fact that they still barely had any hurricane relief after being hit by 2 Category 4 hurricanes. You know what I mean? And so I think, again, some people have to really read the room sometimes. I hate that phrase. It's so cliche, but I think there's a lot of people who feel that they know what's best for other groups of people just because they think they're a good person. Sometimes you need to just shut up and listen. That's kind of been my goal for 2021, is really listening to voices. I know I be thinking I know everything already, but you still got to learn. Like, if you're not trying to learn something new every day, then you stop growing. I don't think I always get it right. I think sometimes my viewpoints have shifted over the years, but at the end of the day, you know, again, sometimes you have to listen to what it is people want. Let's see. And I think a lot of U.S. territories would rather have their own independence. I think American Samoa would like to go back to being their own sovereign nation. I think Guam, you know what I mean? Because we're bringing all our foolery to the places over there. You know, they had their own stuff, and here we come building base. And really, it's just for military complexes. We over here building bases and stuff over there, bothering them people. And then even in D.C., the fact that this is not a state and that we have no representation in Congress. And so the decisions that are made by the foolish people in power, and we got to be collateral to all of it. That is a very stressful experience. You know how pissed off I am sometimes with how much I got to pay in taxes living out here sometimes. And I'm like, we don't even have representation out here. And they be taxing us for everything. Goodness. Let's see. Somebody said a lot of Latinos are white adjacent. Dang, this thing is scrolling. They typically consider themselves to be white. There is no white versus Latino, Afro-Latino. The ones that claim to be are very few. And we've had that conversation too when you talk race versus nationality versus ethnicity. Like Latino is not an actual race. We know that it's more of an ethnicity and that there are many layers to what constitutes being like technically, I guess, Latino, because you have white Latinos, you have black Latinos, and politically they do not operate as a unit politically because there are a bunch of viewpoints. You know, somebody who is from Cuba or from Venezuela has a very different perspective on a lot of things politically than somebody who's going to come from Puerto Rico or who's going to come from Mexico or even Panama. And so again, you know, there's not really a full coalition. I think that's why when you see the voting patterns, it tends to be that 2/3 of those in the Latino community that vote tend to vote for Democrats and a third still vote Republican. It kind of goes to the fact that they have their own viewpoints with everything. And again, their fight is their fight. Much love to whatever they're fighting for, but I'm not dying on the hill for everybody else. I will support people in whatever their endeavor is, but once it starts to get into the realm of being an anti-blackness, then that's where I got to leave you over on the side that you at, and you go ahead and do what you got to do. Just stay out of my way, please. But anyway, let's see. What a day, man. This was not what I planned to do today. I was trying to binge on some shows on Netflix and relax. Doom. Natural resources, if they have any. That's true. A lot of the places that we're snatching up, it's really a conversation of resources. Oh, that's good, Tamika Parker. Let me see. She said, so they banned Farrakhan from social media indefinitely, but Trump only for 24 hours. My thing, again, they kicked Farrakhan off of stuff years ago. And so if you're going to kick him off, Trump should have been gone. And even not just him. There's a lot of people who need to be out of there. And again, I think a lot of these people in Congress who have played into this, Ted Cruz, Jim Jordan, a lot of the people in the House, All right, don't backtrack now. Stand in your mess. Stand and own it. Y'all played into this foolery. Alan, what's up? He said, did you hear? I don't have my glasses, clearly. Did you hear up in Washington State? They have stormed the state capitol and the governor's mansion. Oh, is that like going on right now? I don't have my phone. Well, I got it now. I haven't been able to follow what's been happening for like the last 2 hours. So anything that's happened after 8 o'clock, I'm out of the loop on. So yeah, that sounds about right. What up, Tana May? Let's see. Whiteness was about branding and votes, especially back when it was black businesses, government officials, hospitals. People didn't see blacks thrive, be free, or have education. And thanks, hey, baby. And I think, again, when you have the conversation of whiteness, that was more so created when you saw the emergence of unions, when they recognized that coming out of slavery, that you had a lot of black people who were very, very skilled, highly skilled. And as you came into, especially going into the Great Depression and everything else like that, you saw the emergence of a lot of unions because a lot of white Americans felt that their jobs were in danger by a lot of newly freed black people and black folks who may have no longer been sharecroppers and found other trades and skills that they already had. And so that's when you saw everybody who was once Italian and German and Polish and all that went out the window, and it was all of a sudden it turned into we're white. You know what I mean? At least in the United States. And so that's when you kind of saw whiteness be created. It was created as a weapon, and it was created as a state of being to pretty much combat anything that would go against the grain of whiteness having prosperity over everybody else, of a country like the United States being imperial over the rest of the world. That's where whiteness kind of came from. And that's why you see even where the way that some people vote, they will vote for politicians and vote against their own interests, all because, again, those people represent what protects the idea of whiteness. And again, to a lot of people, they feel that eventually prosperity will come to them as long as they believe in that system. That system will give them what their grandparents had. That system will give them something. So they'll still vote for the foolery. Like I was looking at even the Senate race in Georgia. And when you look at the whatever her name was, you had a candidate that had no platform. She never talked about what she could do. While she was in office, she didn't do anything. She already wasn't elected. She was appointed by Brian Kemp. And, you know, she's worth now apparently $800 million. That's what I read on MSNBC. I thought it was $500 million, but whatever. And you watched her run and have no platform. Her platform was left-wing socialist radicals. That's what Warnock is. That's all she had. And that's what she ran on. That was every commercial. Warnock hates puppies. You know, they're going to destroy the country. The police are going to be gone and blah, 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 blah. All she could do was fearmonger. She never talked about policy. And the fact that she still almost won. That's where we are. That is where we are. You know what I mean? Somebody said because of insider trading. She has that. Exactly. I'm like, she saw what was happening with COVID. She put her investments in. When you're talking about even the vaccines and everything else like that, made a pretty penny. How do you get richer during a pandemic? Rich. And she already came from money. Foolery. But I'll tell you what, I'm happy McConnell's now minority leader. This is going to be enjoyable to watch. I bet you he's going to retire now. It's going to kill him to sit there and be in charge. So he'd be like, I'm out. But boy, I'm going to read a few more comments, and I'm actually going to wrap up just because I want to let y'all get back to your night. And like I said, I'm not trying to impede on other people's lives. I know there's other channels that do lives at the same time, so I'm trying to stay on my lane. Am I being safe in DC? Yes, I am. I told you, I mind my black business. My business is over there. I'll be over here with my little tea. Right now, I'm reading the Phyllis Hyman book I told you guys about. For those who follow me on Stationhead, we were talking about it on Monday. But right now, I've been reading the Phyllis Hyman book, which is a really, really good read. I think it's by a guy, I believe his name is Jason Austin. And so it's called The Story of Phyllis Hyman. It's a really, really good read. It's a great conversation about even black mental health when it comes to entertainment. So if you get a chance, definitely check out. I can just grab it so you can see the cover real quick. Hold on. I'm always up and going somewhere. I got it right here. Okay. But this one right here. Oh, sorry. Jason A. Michael, not Jason Austin. This book right here, Strength of a Woman. Very interesting read. So that's where I've been minding my business. Where did I find my copy of the book? I got it on Amazon. I normally like to get my books from Sankofa, this place on Georgia Avenue. They didn't have the book though, so I had to get it on Amazon. The author, like I said, reached out. If you guys follow me, you know that's somebody who I would really like to see a biopic made for. But the author reached out was saying he still has the rights for the possibility of there being a biopic, but I was trying to let him know I don't have that kind of pull yet. So, you know, I'll put a word out, but you know, I don't know people like that. Anyway, let me see where we're at here. Somebody said all the chaos made them forget their lottery ticket, T-Mon. Yo, and I heard it's like $400 million too. I should have got mine too. I think the drawing was at 6 o'clock. Jane D said whiteness was created as a weapon. Exactly. There's power in numbers. And when you have a system that is backed by numbers, and I think that's one of the reasons why you see such a push to get black people to vote, even though the system still screws us over. And a lot of times we get the very short end of the stick. People recognize that when it comes to where America could be, if black folks didn't vote, it would be a very scary sight, pretty much. This country would have been gone under the water by now. And so I think, you know, that's why there's a push where it's like, okay, black folks, we need y'all to vote, because clearly it feels like we're the only demographic that votes with the idea of, okay, we would at least like to live to make it to the next year. We just can't vote for anything. And it doesn't mean that the people we're putting in sometimes are our savior, but it's just like, we just got to vote to get some people out of the way so we can continue to build with what it is we're trying to build. Like for me, my goal is to build locally in my own community. I ain't thinking about what's happening at the White House and some of them folks, to be honest, because they're in the way. A lot of them, it's honestly just hot air. A lot of them do the same foolery. It's election season. They go to the black church and then all of a sudden they got a Southern accent. I don't feel no ways tired. I'm like, here we go. You know what I mean? And it's same old, same old. And so my energy has been focusing on a lot of the local, like here in DC, the main organization I like to support at the moment is Guns Down Friday. You know, and again, because people always want to talk about black on black crime, and right here you have organizations that fight for, you know, the well-being of the collective within the community. So that's the group I like to shout out. That's a group you should donate to if you're local in the area. I support everything they do. Every single time there's one of these kids that get killed on the street or people that are killed by the police, the way that they raise money, help the families with the funeral, they do backpack drives, they do food drives, they do so many things locally, and they've built their constituency within the area. And so that's where my focus is. I'm all about local. And if you follow me, you know, I run my own community center, and that's my lane. Trying to raise up a group of kids that can hopefully, you know, be better than the last generation. That's where I'm at. Let's see where we're at here. Calvin, someday you should do a live reading of one of your books and we could have a discussion about it. I want to do that with this idea I had for Zoom. I don't know how I want to do this Zoom thing, because I feel like Zoom is chaotic with too many people on it. I do like the idea of Stationhead, but I know a lot of people don't have the app. It is on Android now, by the way. But Stationhead is a little bit more lighter. That's really me just playing a lot of my favorite music and having a lighter conversation. But those shows are Mondays at 7 East Coast time on Stationhead. Let's see. Any predictions for January 20th? If they have common sense, they'll just do that inauguration crap virtually. Y'all don't need to have no ceremony. You don't need to meet up on the stairs of the Capitol. Do that crap virtually and call it a day. Because I'm not trying to put it out there, but like I said before, this is not the end of anything. And there is definitely opportunity for other things to happen, especially after the Senate finishes voting for whatever they're doing right now on my TV. Listen, there's going to be even more anger. And this really stirred up and fueled up a lot of people's energy. Some of these folks have been sitting on rage for decades, and this is exciting to them. They think this is the war. They think this is the moment. And so this is not going to be something that makes them say, okay, we went too far, guys. For them, it's like, yo, we were able to get in the Capitol. Let's try the White House. You know what I mean? They're going to keep going. It doesn't stop there. So the 20th, I don't know. If they had common sense, they better do that inauguration virtually and call it a day. It is what it is. Do I think it's the start of something? I think it's a continuation of what's already been happening. That's for Sean Mike TV. I don't think much has changed. And it's funny. Somebody said, SF said, I agree. This is these Patriots' wet dream. And again, Patriots in quotes. It's funny how words get kind of tossed around. You know, again, when we complain about what's happening, we're told if we don't like it, we can leave. We can go back to Africa. You know, go over there. I bet you won't go back. You know what I mean? Why don't you trace your ancestry? We saw you on that commercial where the girl had the gele on her head. Why don't you go get one? You know, but let it be them. They're patriotic. They get to go to U.S. Capitol buildings and storm it. They get to go to state capitals with guns. They get to have standoffs with the police in Oregon, and they're heroes and, you know, everything else like that. Same thing for us. Look, they still looking for Assata Shakur. She's still on the most wanted list after being framed, you know, 30, 40 years later. That woman is in her 70s, and they still got smoke for Assata. Like, man. Somebody said to end on a good note. Did you watch Soul? I have not seen it yet, but I do want to watch it because I've seen a lot of conversations about it. I spent so much time putting together that Usher video. That was literally the last 2 weeks of my existence. Those are a lot of work to put together. And then YouTube was doing the most. And so I had to keep going back and restructuring the video because they kept trying to flag it. And so it kind of killed my rollout. But some of you got to sit through the live premiere. And then, of course, it was missing for like a day and a half. But it is what it is. Where are we at? Somebody said, Calvin, let's talk about it. I'm not sure what I'm talking. You'd have to ask the question. I missed the context of what you were talking about, Alicia Robertson. But I will watch the Soul movie when I get a chance. Let's see. Wait, didn't Assata pass some years ago? Oh, no, Assata Shakur is alive and well. What I would really like, I would love if Assata did a follow-up to her experience. Now, my friend Tana May was laughing at me because I'm like, I want to know how she escaped and made it to Cuba, but I guess clearly you don't, Matt, I want to share that part, but I would like to know her story of everything once she left the United States. I would love to hear more about that. You know what I mean? Let's see. Thank you guys for the compliments on the Usher bit. That was a lot of work. I don't know who the next artist is. It's probably going to be the Demita Joe project, but we'll see. Have you ever read Bell Hooks? I don't think I've read that or Bell Hooks yet. I'd have to double check. Somebody said we're in a pandemic. It never should have been in person. Yeah, honestly, come on. Folks don't listen. Do whatever they want to do. Where are we at? I'm gonna read a few more comments and then I'm gonna wrap it up and let you guys get back to your night. But yeah, I just hope collectively for Black folks, I really think our goal in all of this is, one, you just have to keep building what you're already working towards and recognize that you live under a system that does not always protect you. And I feel like when you already know what you're up against, it's easier to put yourself in a place to be prepared for whatever happens. And I think there's a lot of us who it's hard to shock us with what happens. There's not a whole lot that can shock me. I think honestly, the last time I might have been a little shook by something that happened in the United States was when they launched the missiles in Iran last January. And that's only because I can walk to the U.S. Capitol from here. And I already know if something goes down, D.C. is one of the first places they're going to blow up. So I was a little paranoid that night. I was like, man, whew, that was some rough sleep that night. But other than that, you know, there's really not a lot going on. Avocado Queen said, do you really think these domestic terrorists will serve time in jail? The way that they hand walk, and I feel like a lot of these people are going to get slaps on the wrist. But, and it's interesting, the fact, again, that people made it into the Capitol, they're sitting in these people's offices taking pictures and selfies and stuff. I don't see them getting the book thrown at them. There's not going to be an example made out of them, at least not under this administration. And honestly, I don't even see Joe as being somebody who's really going to hold that same group accountable either, because he wants to be the white Martin Luther King and bring everybody together. And I'm like, once you accept the fact that there will never be a United States of America, you'll be all right. Like, you just going to have to learn that folks are going to have to just somehow coexist. I think the best goal or hope you can have for America is that Americans can just coexist. Folks do their thing over there, other folks do their thing over there, and we somehow make it work. The idea of all of us coming together and holding hands and living in a great utopia, it's not happening. It will happen for some folks, but again, when you've had generations of people just embedded in the idea that they're superior to everybody and everything, they're not trying to be cohesive with nobody like me, not no loudmouth, skinny black dude in DC who's always talking trash about them. They ain't trying to kick it with me. No, they can't. Listen, I'm sure, you know, if they had the opportunity, they would love to stump me out today if I would have been out there. So no, it is what it is. There's never going to be that. And so Joe, unfortunately, in my opinion, I'm all for trying to bring people together, but we ain't never been together. And I think that's another false element in history. Like, can you tell me when has America ever been together? When? You know what I mean? Like, they can't even be together when it comes to the Olympics. So it's never been a thing. And like I've said before, you can get along with anybody in this country until you talk race and until you talk politics. That's when you see the real colors come out with folks. That's when you see where people stand on things. And I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of public figures and everybody else, they walk on eggshells because they want to be loved by everybody. I'm not pressed to be loved by everybody. I don't mind putting myself out there and saying how I feel and being called all kind of N-words and whatever, because I ain't going to lose no sleep about it. It is what it is. And I think that's one of the benefits. You know, I've put myself in a capacity where on this channel, I can talk about what I want, and I'm not going to lose an army of subscribers because people know what they're going to get up front. I haven't been on here for 10 years only talking celebrity gossip and reality shows, and now all of a sudden I want to talk politics. That hasn't been my platform. And no disrespect to the people who do that, but again, it's just like, it is what it is. We're not going to be that, and it's fine. And as somebody who has lived multiple experiences, an experience where I grew up around nothing but white folks, and then there were many times where I was the only one in the group picture. The experience of living in an area where the only time you see a black collective is the barbershop and church. And shifting over to a different experience where, okay, now you're at Howard and you're at a place where it's literally, it's nothing but you, or living in a city that has a larger black population, like living on both sides of the spectrum, or even being a black person overseas in Europe. I've just kind of seen different experiences. And I think those experiences have just shown me that, no, there's not a cohesive anything. Even in Europe, they don't even get along. You know, even the white folks in Europe don't get along with each other. They got so much turmoil, like no disrespect to the UK, but y'all see the foolery that's happening over there. And it's not even just about, you know, because they do have a black collective over there as well, but it's just, even when you're talking Brexit and what they got going on, it's universal. When there is a battle for resources and power, anything goes. All that friendship goes out the window. Goodness. Where are we at? So like I said, my main goal as a person living in the United States is to exist, peacefully raise a family, be able to build for myself, for my community, for those that I love, and to mind my merry business and be left alone. I don't want to be dealt with. I don't want people making policy that's punitive to my experience or to my future children or even the people or the communities that I work in. And like, just leave me alone. Like that's it. You know what I mean? Goodness. All right, we're going to wrap up soon. Let's see. Somebody said Trump did sedition, which is also treason. See, the thing with all these conversations of treason, he's done a bunch of treasonous things, and not just him, and nothing happened. So it's kind of like the last 4 years have shown us that even though there are all of these procedures in place, they're not going to be utilized. Now, let's just say I'm almost old enough to run for president, but let's just say I became president and did everything that the current president has done. The way I would have been under the jail or assassinated by now, it wouldn't have even been a conversation. But again, it depends on who's in charge. You know what I mean? What's up, Steve McCoy? A lot of people are saying they think it was planned. I see that Saywall #1, I think it was planned. I mean, it clearly seems like it. He told y'all he'd see y'all on January 6th. You know what I mean? There's a lot of foolishness going on. So we'll see how this unfolds. We'll see who gets charged, who gets pardoned, who goes down as, you know, forgotten heroes and martyrs and everything else. It is what it is. Somebody said, I heard Italy was racist as F when it came to that female black president that went into office. My experience in Italy, the racism that I remember witnessing really was towards those that were from the continent of Africa that were there. Like they weren't allowed, and this is like 1996, 97, 98, 99. They weren't, and this is northern Italy. This is the Veneto region. So that would be like Vicenza, Padova. I don't think Venice is in the Veneto region or Vento region. I can't tell if it's, but I forgot, but those kind of areas. And my mom was calling, I'll call her back. I can hear my phone ringing. But in that area, like a lot of people who were from the continent were not allowed in a lot of the stores. However, Black Americans were, and I think that's because they knew most of us were United States military. But there still was issues with race then, because I definitely remember being in Venice and this Italian lady cussed me out this time. I don't even know what she was saying, but you know, they have all the stands. I was in St. Marco's Square, and you know, they had the stands, and they used to have these. You remember those toys where you push the thing and the picture spins and you look? So this lady had one on her stand, and so I picked it up and it was still hooked to the stand. And so I'm watching it, and that lady like smacked the thing out my hand, and she said whatever she said in the time, cussing me out. And I recognized that it wasn't even about me looking at the item, because there were other kids in that area who were doing the same thing, but I was the only black one. It was my 10th birthday because McDonald's had finally came to Venice, and so my parents took me to Venice so I could go to McDonald's. And yeah, I definitely got cussed out by this lady with red hair. It was it wasn't Joy Behar from The View, but I mean, same hair color. But man, lady cussed me out in Italian. Like basically she was saying, don't touch the stuff, get away, back up. Because I think for her, she felt that I was going to steal the little toy or whatever. But, you know, again, racism is global, and they've definitely had their fair share of racism in that country. I think a lot of the love that some of them have for black people, like, and it's not all of them. I think there's I think because historically they've been treated to an extent pretty terribly by Europe, mainly because when it comes to phenotypes, they were built a little differently. They got olive skin, so on and so forth. People up north from some of like the Scandinavian countries and stuff treated them a little bit terrible way back in the day. So to an extent, sometimes there's some mutual understanding, but no, they were just as terrible as the rest of the countries. It is what it is. But yeah. And so, and that's another ball game, because when you start talking nationalism by countries, and countries that have been here for thousands of years, it's a different ball game. The countries may have not had the same names, but it's been the same group of people, same ideals, same viewpoint, same culture. Maybe the names and the borders change after each world war, but you know, not that much really changes. So how was there more police beatdowns during peaceful protests than with it? Yep, just like we talked about, Jay Law. Again, this is systemic. And I think there was also messages being sent. And for a lot of people watching tonight, I'm sure they felt empowered knowing that they can do this and nothing's going to happen. And I think for other people on the other side of the spectrum, it's just showing you the double standards that exist. And again, the things that black people collectively have been saying, you know, when it comes to what's wrong with this country, and the people who have broken their necks to try to gaslight us and try to make us feel crazy or look crazy. Hey, I mean, everything that I've been saying is being proven on live TV, on all the networks unapologetically. So I'm going to sleep good tonight. I tell you that. Somebody said, how's my mother doing? Oh, she's good. She's living her best life. Oh, but no, I'm not going to share that, but she's living her best life. I'll tell you that. Best life. I'm trying to get like her. Let's see. I feel like there's no way this wasn't an inside job. Honestly, you honestly, like, I'm sure things will come out in the next few days. Clearly, there had to be some people who knew about something. For me, it was just a coincidence that at the same time that they were objecting was the same time that the door got kicked in and folks stormed it. I said, oh, okay. All right. We're going to see how this goes. We are going to see how this goes. Okay. So, yeah, I can definitely see. And we already know there's a lot of things that are inside jobs anyway. It's, you know what I mean? It is what it is. And again, I don't measure my experience or my success based on what it is that white people in America collectively have, because they are not my standard. So when I watch them get the exceptions, I don't lose sleep because I already know what I'm up against when it comes to a system. But I just like to state the obvious and showcase it and highlight it just to let people know this is what black people are talking about when they, you know, when we say that this is what we're up against. Because like I've said before, my purpose is not to just sit here and complain. My purpose is to sit here and highlight what you're seeing. And for me, the conversation is, in spite of everything that happens systemically to Black people when it comes to laws, to policy, restrictions, all kind of different things, I just want you to know that I'm still going to get to where I need to be. But in spite of what's happening, I'm going to get to where I need to be. But these are the roadblocks that I'm running into at the same time. So don't open your mouth to try to criticize my experience or what it is that I'm doing or what it is that my people are doing when you have contributed to that system and you benefited from that system and you were silent for a lot of the foolery because you were trying to build up what you had. And now all of a sudden you want to be an ally and be best friends. I'm like, all right, it is what it is. You know, you've policed how I say things. Even Black folks sometimes, especially some people in older generations, come on my channel and they say you're too militant. I was like, me, I'm the militant one. Okay, if you say so. I'm too radical. And people have policed how I approach things. And I'm like, it's funny that for me, and I've said this before, Black people are burdened with the element of poise. We have to have poise in everything we do because we're going to be judged. And you get to watch other folks just go and tear the whole thing down, tear it all down, and they're celebrated. And so again, for me, I don't lose sleep over the opinions of how people think I feel when it comes to saying what I need to say. Let's see. Lady M said, I think the whole exercise was to put on a show. I'm sorry. I think the whole exercise was put on to show a certain group of people that they don't really have a voice like they think they do. I can see that. You just kind of setting the example, letting people know where they stand on things. And I think I really think this is a wake-up call for a lot of people. I really do, especially a lot of Black folks, because there's a lot of folks who really want to give this system a chance. There are a lot of folks who really, really honestly believe, and I'm not going to take that away from them, but I'm just like, pay attention to what you're witnessing. That's all I'm saying, because what you're seeing in 2021 is the same thing that was happening in 2011, happening in 91, happening in 2001, 81, 71, 61, 51. Keep going back. It's the same foolishness, the same system, the same protections. That not much has really changed. You're just seeing it evolve and take different forms each and every year. So I don't lose sleep over this mess. I'm telling you. And I think that's why I tell you guys, you have to find things that also give you serenity and inner peace, because you will drive yourself crazy if you spend all of your time focused on the foolishness that's taking place. You know, I will acknowledge what's happening. I stay alert, but I also live in my own world that I've created for myself. Yes, the system still exists and I can't hide from it through a fake reality. But at the same time, I'm not running up my blood pressure and kicking the bucket at 55 from a heart attack because I'm sick and tired of all the foolishness that's happening. And so again, my focus is, let me take care of my specific community and what's going on in my neighborhood and the people that I love and care about. And that's where my energy is. I'm not about to lose sleep over white folks. I'm sorry, because they certainly ain't losing sleep over me at all. And again, this is not a conversation about anti-whiteness. This is a conversation about the Black plight in America and what Black folks have to live and fight against each and every day. And so if you feel that you have to center yourself in Black people's problems as a white person because you have an element of guilt or you don't like the way that the conversations about your collective are being presented, hey, have a conversation with your collective and tell your aunties and uncles and cousins and brothers and husbands and wives, get their stuff together. That's all I got to say. Calvin, you don't even have to announce that. Yeah, I certainly don't. Very, very true. But, you know, I start to get a lot of new faces on here and folks be all out of the loop and be trying to argue me down. CB, thank you, Black Barb. CBS is saying that the members are discussing the possibility of invoking the 25th Amendment. Pence is cooperating, shaking my head, late but possible now after 2 days. You know, we'll see. I really don't think they're going to use it. And if they do, at this point, he's going to be out of office in what, a week and a half anyway? Y'all had 4 years to do that. You know, I would have thought after that Iran mess, that was going to be the final nail in the coffin. Like, okay, get him out of here because now he's putting people at risk. You know what I mean? But after that, nope. So the 25th Amendment is weightless at this point. It doesn't, you know, what if anything, invoking the 25th Amendment now only stirs the pot more for these crazy folks that are outside. And that's going to really get them to go. Because I told you, they're talking civil war. I'm like, who are y'all fighting? You fighting your neighbors? Like, I don't understand. By the way, there's a video I've been meaning to do, and it's a conversation about the obsession with the Confederacy by current Americans, especially Americans who have no lineage and no ties to the Confederacy. And so I'm definitely, God, when I get a minute, I'm going to definitely do a video on that, because I definitely want to talk about how even groups like Daughters of the Confederacy play a role into that very narrative and that very language that we see now. And when you talk about how they were able to manipulate the history books that our kids use, like when you're talking about McGraw-Hill, the company that makes most of the history books in, schools in K through 12 in the United States system, and how they've been able to manipulate the history books when it comes to different narratives and so on and so forth. I can't wait to get that one done. I haven't had a chance to do it just because my plate is so full, but I would really like to do that video because there's so much to really recognize. There is so much. Hold on, give me 1 second, y'all. I'm sorry, hold on. Hey, let me call you back in like 10 minutes.
Oh, well, I'm going to bed. Good night.
Okay, good night. All right, bye. All right, can y'all still hear me? That was my mom. I just need to let her know I was good. Yeah, my family always worries. They sometimes think that, I don't know. They swear that I'm outside out there fighting and stuff. I'm like, no, I'm at home. Somebody said, please do. Grew up in New England and people are crazy about the Confederacy. Even growing up in Washington State, I used to see all kinds of Confederate flags, especially when you get out of that Seattle, Tacoma metropolitan area and you go to other parts of the state. The further east you go, the more Confederate it gets. I've been like, okay, I guess. Somebody said, stop being complacent and participating in racist systems. Say something and stay the hell out of the way. There we go. I'm telling you. Somebody said, am I in Washington? I'm in Washington, D.C., but I was raised for a few years in Washington State. That's pretty much where my roots are. And so I went from one Washington to the other Washington. And so again, I've seen a lot. And like I said before, that's one of the things that gets on my nerves now as somebody who has been here for 15 years in DC. The way that you watch people come into your city and just tear stuff up, it kind of eats at you like, dang, man. Because it's not even about all that crap that they do at the federal buildings. I'm not worried about that. But it's when they come back to their hotels that are actually in the part of DC that people live in, and they're disrespectful to people at different restaurants. We talked about the vandalizing the churches, and there were people who even had the nerve to say, I overreacted, that wasn't a big deal. And I'm like, it was a big deal, because look where the levels went to. Look where the layers got. They got away with that mess, and look, that kind of enabled them to say, okay, we could do even more. So like I said, to go and attack a historically, I was about to say historically black church, like it's a HBCU, but a historical black church that's been, one of the oldest churches in the country, as far as a black church since 1894, and for them to go and vandalize and do whatever, they recognize that those churches are symbolic of more than just holding a sign that says Black Lives Matter. Black churches in the past have been that place for collective, thinking when it came to the Black collective. I know the church sometimes get criticism now because there are some people who are in it for the wrong reasons and they're taking advantage of their congregations. But for years, the Black church, the same thing with a lot of the mosques that exist, some of the schools that used to actually be within the actual neighborhood, some of the community centers, those were the central places where Black people got together to plan and talk about what needed to be done in their communities. And so a lot of people know that, especially a lot of older folks, and they use that moment to go and send a message. Like, that's one of the things that's always been in American history. We talked about, remember, was this maybe 2 years ago, where there were those random 4 Black churches that all burned down mysteriously? Like, people know what they're doing. This stuff is not all just coincidence. These aren't isolated incidents. And even though it was something as simple as just taking a Black Lives Matter flag and burning it, whatever it is, I have my viewpoints on Black Lives Matter. But again, they knew what they're doing, and there's a message that they're sending. And again, they recognize that they're backed by a system, and there's power behind their actions collectively. Not individually, but collectively. When there's enough of them, there's power behind their actions. So, it is what it is. Boom, boom, boom. Let's see where we're at. We're gonna wind down soon. I need to call it a night. Somebody said, when I leave North America, Nova Scotia, people think I am Black American. Such is life. Somebody said, white privilege is being able to storm the Capitol and not get arrested or shot at, but then take offense at someone taking a knee on the football field. You know what I mean? It's interesting to see how things shift. Again, is Blue Lives Matter going to be a thing now? Because now all of them hate the police, even though the police still pretty much, held their hands and escorted them around. They're mad at the police because the police are traitors now. So I'm like, is that still a thing? I'd like to see how that kind of goes now. Somebody said, I don't do church. They want me to forgive too much. And I think that's where you see an interesting dynamic when you talk about race and church. You see, when you talk about white evangelicals, violence is celebrated. You know, even when you talk about pro-war, that's kind of something that's very pushed by evangelicals and support the troops. You know, again, like I've said before, I personally don't believe that any of the wars we've been in, probably since the Civil War, has had anything to do with freedom for anybody. There's always been something behind the scenes that people wanted. It's usually some kind of imperial interest, something that relates to money. It's never been about protecting freedom for anybody. But for a lot of people, they will support war, and not just the idea of the war, but going and actually killing folks, and it's just perfectly fine. And then that's why it's hard for me to get excited when I see the clips of, you know, troops coming home and the kids get to run and hug them. I'm like, I'm happy that the kids get to see their parents. But then in the back of my mind, I'm like, I wonder what they had to do while they were over there. And I think that was one of the guilts that got me as a child of two parents who came into the military. And I think there's a bigger conversation with that as well. When you talk about how the military was used to recruit poor Black Americans in order to have an opportunity for prosperity, that's how my parents ended up in the military. That was the only option to get out of the predicaments that they were in. You know, fortunately, they never had to go to combat or anything, but still, they too were a part of that complex. And even the wealth that they were able to build later down the line still stems from that element of imperialism. So I indirectly benefit as well. And so there are things like that that still can kind of haunt you in your sleep sometimes. Much love to my parents, but you know, that's the experience for a lot of people. There's a lot of people in the military who are only there because they're trying to build a better life for themselves. And that's kind of scary, where you live in a world where the only opportunity you have to get yourself out of a rough spot is to go and sign up to possibly have to kill somebody in the name of a government, you know, to go and take out somebody you don't even know personally, but you were told that they were bad people. And on the flip side, they're in the same boat. Like when you think about war and the people who have to go and fight, these are people that don't even know each other. You know what I mean? When you think about something like Vietnam, most people couldn't point that mess out on the map. They didn't know who they were fighting, what they were fighting for. And you watch 58,000 people die in a war that served no purpose. You know what I mean? But it was all about U.S. interests. And so stuff like that, it's another conversation. And everybody's experience is going to be theirs. But, you know, that's where we're at. So when you talk about evangelicals, specifically white evangelicals, violence has always been celebrated. Because, again, I think their experience religiously, their religion is whiteness. I'm sorry. Like, you saw what was happening when the election was still kind of going, and you saw people like Paula White, who's supposed to be this big giant evangelical preacher who's built her entire career, you know, in the Black church because she was a little too Pentecostal for white folks at the time. You watch her shift right over when the checks started coming in, and all of a sudden the African angels were coming. And so, you know, I don't want to talk religion because you are free to believe what you want to believe, and I have my beliefs as well. But, you know, there's a lot going on. Somebody says, guys, this is a spiritual war, and I can believe that as well too. I think there's a lot going on. That's all I'll say. Heaven to be interested. I hope it's segregated. No disrespect, because I ain't trying to spend eternity with certain folks. I'm just saying. All right, we're gonna wrap. I'm gonna do a few more questions, and then we're gonna get out of here. Let's see. Somebody said there are Confederate statues in the ground area of Spokane, that's in Washington, even though Washington was obviously never in the Confederacy. Like, Washington wasn't even a state for another 30 years. That's the stuff we're talking about. Like, Washington didn't become a state till what, 1889, 1890, and you got Confederate flags over there. All right, you say so. I mean, the foolishness. All right, I'll do a few more questions, and then we're going to wrap up. Somebody said, again, I only joined the Navy because I was homeless. And, you know, I think a lot of people, especially between about 1975 and 2000, a lot of people also joined the military because they also felt that nothing was going to really happen internationally. It kind of felt like, okay, there's going to kind of be a silence when it comes to wars and stuff. Because at this point, we done blew up so much stuff. People don't want to mess with us. And a lot of people, especially who were in the military between 75 and 2000, never had to go to any kind of combat. I mean, the only thing that really happened during that time, you know, it was what, Panama and Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and the bombings we did in Bosnia, and then the bombings in Iraq in '98. But a lot of people, a lot of those missions were smaller missions. So a lot of people in the military during that time period never went to any kind of combat. And so a lot of them use that as an opportunity to build, because again, you know, you do the military route and then you can get a really, really good job in the government afterwards, so on and so forth. But I just, again, $740 billion for the military in the budget. Meanwhile, folks can't even get a stimulus check. Folks are starving, but we got money for everything else. And then when you have all this money for all the security, clearly the security's breached. They can just kick the door in. I know that's a different line item in the bills, but, you know, it's anyway. Somebody said Paula White is nothing but a wolf in sheep's clothing. I'm telling you, I'm still trying to figure out what African angel she was summoning because I don't remember the spiritual entities having nationalities in the Bible, but okay. Did you see the video of the police letting protesters in today on Twitter? Yep. I was talking about that earlier, LaShawn, where they literally, you watch the move the barricades and let people run in. And even in the videos I saw where they were taking the selfies with the police, it's like the police are holding the door open and just like, it's a lot. A lot. Somebody said, I'm about to make some pancakes. Anybody want some? You better know how to make them right. Yo, it better be the kind with the crispy edges. If the edges ain't crispy, I don't want it. I saw this really raggedy infomercial where it was some kind of stove or something, and the people made these little pancakes, but them pancakes look so nasty. Kind of like the IHOP pancakes. You know how like the IHOP pancakes, they're flavorful, but they have like that hard layer of skin. I'm like, what is this? It's all rubbery and chewy. I'm good on that. Absolutely good on that. Let's see. Chocolate chip pancakes are my favorite. See, I'm starting to get like an old person. It's too much sugar. I just want some straight up pancakes. I don't want too much in them, but I do make a really good hazelnut French toast on the side. Just want to let y'all know that. Let's see. All right, guys, this has been good. Please stay safe and sane out there. Shout out to the folks in Georgia. Y'all did that with the whole Senate race. I was going to probably be on a stretcher if I would have witnessed the foolery that I thought was going to take place. But I would have been shocked. So shout out to y'all in Georgia as far as the Senate race. I mean, I don't know what will happen in the next 2 years, but this will be, I think, for those that are Democrats and the Democrat Party. Listen, y'all got everything you need. You have 2 years to prove yourselves because a lot of people are looking at y'all like, we let you have this and y'all been playing games for years. So come correct and be ready to get sent home. You know what I mean? So we'll see how things go. Let's see. Anyway, I am going to bed. Actually, I'm lying. I'm about to watch some TV before I go to bed because now I'm wide awake. But please stay safe out there, guys, especially those in the DMV. There's a lot of foolery going on. There's a lot of crazy people outside. I suggest you go about your business and be on your merry way. There's no point in trying to go and fight some random person with a Trump flag on the street corner because they're all on the way back to Iowa and wherever by Friday anyway. There's no point in even engaging in all that because, again, a lot of these people are carrying things that they are not supposed to have here. And it would be sad for something terrible to happen to you all in the name of trying to fight, pretty much a mouthpiece for a system that's already built against you anyway. So F them, let them do their little foolery. They'll go home. It is what it is. Anyway, I mean, I ain't gonna lie. I'd be ready to punch some people in the face. I ain't gonna lie. I drive with a hammer in the car. I'd be ready because I didn't know coming home from work today. I always had that hammer on the side drawer. I was ready just in case I got stopped at the red light or something and there was a mob by my car. I was ready. But stay safe. I'll see you guys later in the week. We'll do some more videos and I'm out. So again, we're going to see how 2021 goes. That's all I got for you. All right. Stay safe. Good night. Till next time.